and welcome to this edition of Inside Tacoma. I'm your host, Randall Lewis. Our guest for our conversation today, City Council member Keith Blocker. Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Good to see you. And you've been very, very busy. And I think since the last time you were here, you're now one of the more senior members of the City Council, too.
I am.
That's amazing. You've only been on the council 2 years.
Yeah. Not a rookie anymore. I enjoy it. I think we have the city elected some great people. It's only been a few months, but I'm excited about working with my new council member colleagues, and just looking forward to getting some good work done.
All right, and then you got to appoint someone to the city council as well. So
we did.
Justin Camerata.
Justin Camerata. He's very active in the community. Has a very unique perspective. Young father. I just think he's going to be a great addition for the time that he's with us while Councilmember Toms is away on military leave.
Right. It had to be somewhat gratifying to have as many people apply to be a city council member as did. You had to sort through several dozen folks who thought, I want to be a city council member. I want to give back to my community.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to step up in that way. This is a very unique job. It's not the easiest thing to do. So to put your name, on the list and say, I want to step up and serve in this capacity is something I think is a really good thing.
Right. And particularly in that district. Now, we'll get to your district too, but that district's an interesting one. We've talked about that with Councilmember Toms and his predecessors as well, because it's northeast Tacoma, very residential area, but different than most of the rest of Tacoma.
Right.
It's the north end of Tacoma, residential area, and then it's downtown and the port. I mean, it's very, very, very different, all within that one district.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things going on there, and I think Justin has a good grasp on the dynamics of that district. I think he's going to hit the ground running and get out there and make sure he's connecting with the neighborhood councils and the people in that community. And like I said, Robert did a great job in his service as a council member, and I think Justin's going to do a great job while Robert's away.
All right. Now, in your district, which is an area that is experiencing some rapid growth, that's got some major investments coming to it very soon. It's the retail heart of Tacoma. It's where a large portion of the city's tax base comes from, and that's all within the 3rd Council District, which you represent. So there's a lot to go over there. So let's spend some time on what's happening in the 3rd District now.
Well, we have light rail coming down MLK. That's going to be a great addition to the MLK corridor. What we're starting to call our medical mile is right. It's going to be in between two hospitals in the city of Tacoma. People are starting to see that area as a place to put businesses, to put new developments, housing. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the next coming years with MLK. Then also my district has the mall. We're in the process of finalizing our mall sub-area plan, which is very exciting. That's been a long process. Again, that's going to be a growth area where we're going to see more businesses come, more housing developments come. We have to prepare for, thousands, I think upwards of 8,000 people to start living in that particular area. So that's going to be exciting. We want to make sure that area is walkable. We want to make sure there's the right amount of transportation options in that community, and also there's a huge interest in making sure that with new growth and families, that we have parks in that area, and make sure it's livable, walkable, and plenty of job opportunities in that community.
Now, the one thing I think about sub-area planning, which the city's done 5 of those now in various parts of the city, and maybe another one soon to begin in the Tide Flats area, is that they do a much more comprehensive look at development within an area than most comprehensive plans do, including a lot of the environmental work for projects all gets done in advance.
Yep.
So that it makes it easier for development to occur. When somebody comes in, they don't necessarily have to do a bunch of new additional environmental work. It kind of down by block kind of explains, this is where we want to see roads, this is where we want to see bike paths, more parks, and very detailed look with an area where more traditional comprehensive plans are much higher level views of the city.
Yep.
So one of the things that you've got to be taking a look at, though, in the Tacoma Mall area is, it's key, as I said earlier, to our economic future of the city. A lot of tax dollars come out of there. But malls themselves are evolving. I mean, the era of the 60s era of the auto-oriented mall is beginning to come to an end, and we want the Tacoma Mall to continue to evolve and thrive as the community's needs change.
Oh yeah. So that issue has created some controversy. Like we said, we want to make sure our neighborhoods, and particularly the mall area, is more walkable, right? Which means we're looking at creating roads in areas that there were not roads before, and our business community has some heartburn about that as it relates to looking at the mall area plans and seeing dotted lines or hard lines on maps going through particular areas and sometimes even buildings. But the city's been working with the business community to try to find a good compromise as it relates to that kind of development. I think we all agree that we want our neighborhoods and our communities and our mall area to be more walkable. At the same time, it's going to be a long process, and we need to make sure that our business community is prepared and aware of what the city is planning.
Right, and I understand that the ownership of the Tacoma Mall, the Simon Company, even though it's not based here in Tacoma, was very active in participating in that. Another major employer and very big business in that area is Costco, also based a little closer than the Simon Company is, but also very active in participating, as it did other businesses in there, small businesses, local businesses. This wasn't just some planners getting together and dreaming big and some residents. This was kind of everybody was at the table.
Yeah, the city did a good job in this case, which I think, when it comes to sub-area plans with all the details that has to be laid out, the city did a good job at reaching out to the community. So the business community, residents, people who are invested in stakeholders in those areas all come to the table to help the city figure out how to move forward with this process. So again, like I said, this process started prior to me being elected to the city council, and I'm coming in on kind of the tail end and helping with city staff and bringing community members together and the business community together to finalize this process. So we should be done within, I want to say, the next month or so, when that sub-area plan comes to the full council, where we will vote on it.
All right.
Yep.
And then up here in Hilltop, where we are for the Tacoma studio is located, you can just have to walk down this street, go out the door, and turn to the left, and you can see construction going on here at MLK. There's housing being built. There's retail activity going on, and that's even before the light rail construction even begins. That will be coming down the street. So this is clearly a growing market here. And we all like seeing that, yet it brings some fear, doesn't it? Because it's change, and it's leading to some increasing values of property, which is a good thing if you're a property owner.
Right.
Bad thing if you want to be a property owner.
Right. Yep. And that's the tension we're dealing with. For a long time, people felt like this particular community has been neglected, and now we're starting to see more interest in this neighborhood. With that comes, like you said, the rising cost of properties and the rising cost of rent. When people start to see more value in the neighborhood, it makes it harder for the residents who've been living here for sometimes decades. So that's something that the city is being mindful of as we move forward with this process. We went through a Hilltop sub-area plan, and we're starting to see the fruits of that work. But yes, you're absolutely right. With the light rail coming, with new development happening, property values are increasing, and it's making it harder for the people who were already here to remain in this community.
All right. I can think of times when your predecessor on the city council from this district would chat with us here about rallying the community to save the Safeway store or to save the post office, where the community was having to, desperately cling to things that were here that were in danger of going away. Now it seems like we're moving in a completely different direction with the concerns that the community has.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, again, if you're going to have problems, I'd rather have those kinds of problems to work on than the kind where you're having to cling to stuff that keep it from all going away.
Oh yeah, I mean, this community is changing, and in my opinion, a good way. I'm excited about the development. I'm excited about seeing people actually walk up and down MLK. We're doing a good job at addressing some of the negative things that are happening on the Hilltop. But with development and the rising cost of properties, it's going to be a challenge for a lot of people to stay in this area, particularly senior citizens. Even if they do own their properties, the property taxes are increasing, and that's going to be something that we have to figure out how to support our senior citizens. Homelessness is a increasing problem in the city of Tacoma. It's not just a Hilltop problem; it's a city of Tacoma problem, and that's something that the city is constantly trying to wrap its brain around and bring people to the table to support those who need our support the most.
Right. And most recently, there was another little bit of flurry about some news in the area. There's been some long-standing need in Tacoma, and not just Tacoma, beyond to Pierce County, but for a youth shelter. There are no youth shelters in Pierce County, which is the second largest county in the state, and it's just kind of an outrageous fact.
Right.
So the city's got some efforts underway to try to address that, has had for some while. It was a false start, and now it's kind of begun. And recently we had some well-meaning folks who had their own idea about how that ought to be done, and they identified a site on MLK in the Hilltop that they thought would be the best place for that, and found some pushback from the community that no, we have different visions for that particular block. We agree youth shelter is vitally important, just not at that particular location. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the city did almost a 3-year process of finding the right location for a youth shelter, and we finally landed on a location, and then that one fell through. But we do have a temporary youth shelter that we're trying to convert into a permanent youth shelter, but one is obviously not enough. So there was a well-meaning group of individuals who identified the Rite Aid building on MLK as a good location for a youth shelter. And while that was they came at this with good intentions, many people in the community felt as though that building was not the right location. One, it's a city block, right? And
whole city block.
It's a whole city block, and to put a youth shelter there that only provides 12 beds for young people just didn't seem like a good use of that location. So I've been working with that group to connect them with other people who are interested in supporting young people as it relates to housing needs, and some good has come out of that. So we're going to be meeting with and continue the discussion about youth homelessness. I think they've stepped away from the idea of the Rite Aid building. People expressed their concerns, and I don't think people are really upset about having a youth shelter in general on the Hilltop. I think it was just that particular location which caused some people some problems.
Right, the location, and then the fact that there were kind of different groups working on the same goal.
Right.
They weren't talking to each other.
Right. A lot of work is already being done around youth homelessness. It's not an easy solution. It's very complicated. Again, people tend to work in silos, and now people are talking more together to figure out how to best resolve this and how to bring the resources to the table to address it.
I understand one of the things I didn't know until this controversy broke was that one of the reasons the Rite Aid building has been empty is that even though the company closed the store, there's a lease and they're still paying lease payments even though they keep the store closed.
Yep.
And nothing really can happen until that lease runs out, and which has got to be really frustrating. The community having to have a retail space not available at all, and yet unable to do anything with it because somebody's still paying lease payments to it.
Right. Yeah, that's been a tough one. The city's been reaching out to the property owners for quite some time now. I think I've been hearing rumors about nonprofits who have been looking at purchasing that property and reaching out to the owner. So hopefully some good will come of that. But right now we just don't know. I think the Rite Aid is paying this property owner upwards of $50,000 a month, so which is a tremendous amount of money for a vacant building. But I think at some point we will get to a place where we could get that property and put it to some good use.
All right. Now, you mentioned affordable housing and homelessness in that discussion, and I want to get to this, shift away from the district for a second, talk about broader issues. Council recently had a retreat, and those two things were amongst the 4 items that you came up with as real priorities to the current city council: affordable housing, homelessness, infrastructure, and economic development. I think were the 4. And the affordable housing is certainly becoming. It's always an issue, in communities. It's becoming an issue in Tacoma now, which is kind of a new thing for Tacoma to experience, and this part of this is a result of the growth this entire region is experiencing, and the discovery by folks who aren't as smart as you and I that Tacoma's a great place. Some people in the region are discovering, hey, Tacoma's a great place, and let's go there because the housing is more affordable than it is in parts of King County. What is the role that you think the city council can play in dealing with keeping housing affordable in Tacoma?
Oh, that's a great question, and I've had this conversation with people before. A lot of people make the assumption that the city, has a lot of control over that, which we don't. Like a lot of it is based off the market, and we can't control the market. We can't control property values increasing. We really can't control people from Seattle who make a higher wage moving to Tacoma. But what we can do is we could set up things like affordable housing trust funds. We can make it easier for developers to build. We could create more incentives to help developers build more affordable housing, which all of that costs money, right? And I keep trying to drill that in on people who just assume that the city can just wave a magic wand. Like, it's really challenging to create more affordable housing in the city of Tacoma. And at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for it. And it could come out the developer's pocket, which is going to impact their bottom line, which they're not really excited to do. If the city, creates more incentives or, cut down the cost of permits, that's going to come out the taxpayer's pocket because somebody has to pay for it. So nothing is done for free. If we do more tax abatements, again, that's less money just generated to come into the city that goes to our streets and goes to pay for our officers. So one way or another, we have to pay for it, and that's what creates the hugest challenge.
All right. It is. You do not have a magic wand. I guarantee that, having worked for the city for a long time. We've looked for it.
Right.
And we've actually asked people in Olympia or DC to give us one.
Right. Give us the wand.
Don't have one either, really. It really is a dilemma, and the market. We do live in a capitalist society, and all the good and all the challenges that come with that. And one of the challenges is, when there's demand, prices go up.
Right. It's expensive, right? It's housing, building houses. Housing is expensive, and I heard a quote: it costs upwards of $250,000, sometimes even more, to build one unit, right? And we have Tacoma Housing Authority, who does a great job at creating not just affordable housing, but low-income housing, and they do it they create high-quality low-income housing, and they're the best game in town. But I've done the math, right? The city of Tacoma has done analysis, and it shows that we need about 7,000 more affordable housing units. 5,000 units at $200,000 is $1 billion, right? So who's going to come in and foot that bill? And the city is not in the business of building housing. What we can do is create policies to make it easier to build more affordable housing. But at the end of the day, private developers are looking at their bottom line, and agencies like THA, they have to pay high top dollar to build housing. I always tell people, the hammer and the nail costs the same amount in Tacoma as it does in Seattle, but people get more bang for their buck when they build in Seattle.
Right, that's the same problem. One of your priorities was economic development, and that's the same problem that we've pointed out to legislators for several years now, is that the steel bars and the concrete cost the same in Seattle as it does in Tacoma, but if I can charge for a commercial office space, if I can charge $36 or $45 a square foot, I'm going to build in Seattle, because in Tacoma I can only charge $21 or $22 per square foot. So why wouldn't I want to build there when the cost of everything else involving the building is the same? It's hard to make to convince legislators that they should provide some assistance or some incentives to us to maybe not eliminate that gap, but to close that gap a little bit, because it would be good policy for the state. The state might be able to save money on building more and more and widening freeways forever if some jobs came here along with the people that are coming here from King County to escape high housing prices. So,
yeah, the city of Tacoma is in the state of Washington, right? And we always tell people we got to follow the law. The last thing we want to do is start passing laws and initiatives, and then now we're going against state law, and now we're getting sued and going to court over things that we can't afford to pay for. So that's something that, and then HUD funding is declining. The federal government plays a role in this, and affordable housing is not just a Tacoma problem; it's a national problem, and it's unfortunately it's getting worse all over.
Right. Another one of those problems that we mentioned that the council focused on was homelessness. And I think we talked about this last time you were here. The city did a kind of remarkably creative and good thing in a relatively short period of time when it created the stability site on Puyallup Avenue. Kind of took some people out of some really horrible homeless encampment places and put them in what is essentially a tent city. We don't call it that, but that's essentially what it is, with services there for those folks who, and some people have transitioned out of there, not many, but some have transitioned out of there to supportive housing. The problem is that phase 3, which was to increase the supply of the supportive housing, we haven't been able to kind of crack that nut yet. Phase 1 was cleaning up the encampments. Phase 2 was the stability site. Phase 3 is the supporting housing. So what are your thoughts about how long this phase 3 part is taking? Is the city, saying, we may not be able to do that, or are we just still plugging away at that?
We're still plugging away at it. I mean, again, it comes down to what we can afford. And the city is currently already investing a tremendous amount of money in homelessness, and we've come to the conclusion that there's going to be some people who are just going to need long-term support, maybe even support for the rest of their lives, and that's a tough burden for a city to bear. Again, this is homelessness, and we're looking at the people who need the services the most. We're looking at mental health problems. We're looking at drug addictions. We're looking at people who suffer from domestic violence and have to deal with trauma, which leads to drug addiction and mental health problems. So that's something that the city is not necessarily equipped with addressing, but we're taking our best jab at it, utilizing the resources that we have.
Okay. And the other regional problem that the homelessness is clearly a regional problem, but I had checked these numbers recently, but I believe there's like 19 shelters in Pierce County. 17 of them are in Tacoma. That's unsustainable. Tacoma represents about 25% of the population of Pierce County, but is taking on a significantly larger burden. And the county and other cities in Pierce County are not.
Right.
doing what I would I'll call it, you don't have to say it, they're not doing their fair share.
Yeah.
So is that part of the strategy too, is how do we kind of incentivize some of this to occur in places other than Tacoma? Because not all of the homeless people in Pierce County are in Tacoma.
Right. So the numbers that I've last heard was that about 1/3 of the people that we serve are not actual Tacoma residents. So those are people who are, leaving, other cities in Pierce County to come to Tacoma for additional support. We're constantly having conversations with, other mayors and other leaders in other cities in Pierce County. But again, it's been a slow process. Some of our other leaders don't think they have a homeless problem, which is ironic because we're dealing with their homelessness problem, and that's just one of our challenges. And it's hard enough to get people in the city of Tacoma to work together and communicate better and break through silos, but there's a whole another challenge to get other cities and throughout the county to start addressing it. So that's something that we're facing. But there's something that I believe our mayor is currently working on, and other city staff is working on as well.
I had heard the story of a mayor from an eastern Washington city who repeatedly told people that he didn't have a homelessness problem in his community until some good folks in his community took him on a tour one evening of his own city, and he realized, yeah, I guess I do.
Yep.
And it was an eye-opening experience for that mayor, because especially people in Pierce County think they don't have a problem. People especially like in eastern Washington, think, well, that's just an urban problem.
Right.
And it's not. It's everywhere in the state of Washington, and we need more elected officials to acknowledge that, yeah, we got to solve this together.
Yep.
All right, well, we got just a couple minutes left. Any one big project that you want to check off the list for 2018, something that's going to take up a lot of your time this year?
Oh man, I mean, the affordable housing thing is one of the biggest issues that myself and other council members are constantly trying to address. Where right now city staff is working with a consultant to bring us some data back to help us give us a good idea on how to move forward with addressing affordable housing, and we're going to do everything we can based off of the data that we received. There's no one way to address it. We realize that affordable housing has closely connected to economic development, and we got to address that tension. Right now, all of our housing, everything that's coming through housing is coming through the economic development department. Maybe that's not the best approach. So we're doing some evaluation to see if that's something that we need to address separately, because that creates a huge tension when you start talking about housing and economic development. Right. The driver becomes the economic development piece and not so much of the affordable housing piece. So that's something that we've come to realize, and that's something that we're trying to figure out.
All right, well, we'll check up with you on that one next time you're here.
All right.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Randy.
Our guest has been City Council member Keith Blocker. We look forward to seeing you next time here on Inside Tacoma.